Episode 1. Arrival on Avachrus. The descent onto Avachrus was always the same. A turbulent ride through dense layers of industrial smog, the land below a vast and endless sprawl of manufactorums, machine temples, and towering stacks that spewed plumes of black smoke into the already polluted sky. The planet never truly saw the sun. Its sky was a shifting gradient of sickly browns and rust-stained oranges, an eternal dusk choked by the never-ending toil of machinery. The air, even inside their landing craft, carried a chemical sharpness, the scent of burning oil and metal seeping through every crack and seal. The dull roar of industrial drills and the constant hammering of metal against metal echoed in the distance, forming a mechanical symphony that never ceased. Somewhere below, massive pipelines transported molten slag through channels the size of rivers, while assembly lines worked day and night to supply the Imperium's insatiable demand for war materials. Yet something was wrong. The silence that hung over the sector of their destination was unnatural. As the lander shuddered and came to a stop on a rusted docking pad, its metal surface worn down by time and neglect, the four figures inside exchanged wary glances. The usual Vox traffic that should have greeted them, factory overseers, mechanicus liaisons, servitor control relays, was absent. Instead, only static greeted their comms, a dead air that unsettled even the most hardened among them. Bry was the first to step onto the platform, his boots clanking heavily against the grated metal. His power sword rested against his hip, worn from use, but ever reliable. His scarred face was set in a grim line, his sharp eyes scanning the vast, empty gantries above them, searching for movement in the smog-choked corridors.
"Something's off,"
he muttered, his voice barely audible over the distant clang of unseen mechanisms. Agatha followed closely, her pristine white and red robes billowing slightly in the cold wind that swept through the open-air docking bay. Even beneath her composed exterior, there was a furrow in her brow, her fingers tightening around the staff adorned with the aquila. The silence disturbed her. It was not the natural silence of a world at rest, but the hollow, oppressive void left in the absence of life.
"It always is,"
she agreed, her voice quieter than usual. Seamus was next, adjusting the strap of his long-last rifle with practiced ease. The ratling was smaller than the others, but his presence filled the space with an energy that felt at odds with their surroundings. He gave a lopsided grin.
"Well, if it's cursed, haunted, or full of things that want to eat us, at least we won't be bored,"
he said, trying to lighten the mood. Bry gave him a look.
"I'd rather be bored than dead."
Seamus shrugged.
"That's a matter of perspective."
Dendrock the tech adept was the last to disembark. Unlike the others, he did not scan the horizon for threats, nor did he adjust any weaponry. His focus was purely analytical, red ocular lenses flickering as he processed the silence around them. His mechadendrites twitched slightly, as if tasting the air for signals that were no longer there.
"Assessment. Anomalous energy readings detected. Proceed with caution,"
he stated flatly. Seamus snorted.
"Why do you always sound even more ominous than everything around us?"
Dendrock tilted his head slightly.
"Clarification. Not ominous. Factual."
Together they advanced toward the gaping maw of the manufactorum's entrance, a vast iron door that stood partially ajar, its once active security locks now useless. The metal was worn and rusted, streaked with old oil that had dried into dark stains. The darkness inside seemed to swallow the light, and for the first time since landing, even Seamus felt the weight of the silence pressing down on them. They stepped into the abyss. The corridors were eerily silent, save for the occasional hiss of leaking steam and the soft crackle of failing lumens overhead. The walls bore the scars of age and neglect, their surfaces etched with symbols both sacred and defiled. Pictographs of machine worship were defaced with strange, erratic carvings, jagged sigils that seemed to twist under the dim lighting. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the air became, thick with the scent of old oil and something more organic beneath it, a faint, rancid undertone that set Bry on edge. Seamus whistled under his breath, eyes scanning the ruined surroundings.
This place has seen better days. Smells like a mix of regret and bad decisions.
Agatha frowned, her fingers brushing over a torn Mechanicus banner, half buried beneath dust and scrap metal.
No, this isn't just neglect. This place was abandoned in a hurry.
Bry stopped at a massive bulkhead, its surface pockmarked with scorch marks. He ran a gloved hand along the damaged metal.
Something forced its way through here, or something was trying to keep something else in.
Dendrock's red ocular lenses flickered as he interfaced with a nearby cogitator panel, his mechadendrites plugging into the rusted ports.
Power levels fluctuating. Emergency lockdown sequences initiated, then overridden. Security protocols manually disengaged.
Seamus cracked his knuckles, stepping up beside the tech priest.
So, someone let whatever happened here happen?
Affirmative.
Dendrock responded, withdrawing his cables from the panel.
Records corrupted. Further data retrieval requires deeper system access.
Agatha's gaze lingered on the floor, where a series of servitor footprints trailed off into the darkness beyond.
Then, let's not keep whatever's down here waiting.
The question of where the facility's occupants had gone was becoming all too clear. The real question was, what had become of them? As they stepped into the generator room, the malfunctioning cogitators cast a sickly red glow across the space. Cables hung like vines from the ceiling, swaying slightly in the stagnant air. And then they saw it. A servitor slumped against the wall, its body twitching in slow, erratic movements. Its remaining organic eye rolled in its socket, lips forming silent words. Wires burrowed into its flesh, merging metal and meat in grotesque symmetry. Agatha took a step forward, her voice barely above a whisper.
Emperor, preserve us.
The servitor's eye locked onto her, and from its cracked vox grill came a whisper, weak but unmistakable. Mercy. The silence that followed was suffocating. Bry tightened his grip on his sword.
I think we just found out what happened to the workers.
Seamus exhaled through his nose.
Yeah. And I doubt this one's the only one.
Dendrock's lenses pulsed.
Threat assessment required.
Then the servitor twitched violently, and the darkness stirred.